Hello, everybody. We're going to pick up our conversation, our discussion now with the realism and naturalism. We're going to discuss a little bit. It took us to a point where we were starting to talk about the red badge of courage. The red badge of courage was actually an immediate success. It brought Crane to the attention of critics both in England and in America. It's literally a bloody wound that's received by soldiers during the war. Now, Henry in the book wishes that he could have a wound because then it would have meant that he was brave rather than a coward and cowardly enough to run off away from battle. Overall, the aim is to demonstrate an understanding of the characteristics of realism representative in the works of Stephen Crane. Now, Stephen Crane was very young when he died. He only lived 28 years. And he died from tuberculosis. And we'll find out later on some of the reasons why he was so sickly. He was actually the same age of his sister when she passed away. Talk about a little spooky there. It's kind of ironic there. But Crane was influenced by an author named Hamlin Garland. And Hamlin Garland is best known for a fiction involving hardworking Midwestern farmers. Reportedly, Crane also read a lot of battle in Tolstoy. Very impressed with the scenes of the battles. The drama and intensity of Crane's brief life make it resemble his best stories. This resemblance is appropriate in a writer who often used life to test his literature, proving the truth of his intuitions by the actualities of his experience. Crane has been called, an impressionist writer, partly because of him telling things, because of uses of images. He has a lot of very vivid images in his writing. In Red Badge of Courage, many of the events that take place are through the viewpoint of a young soldier getting his first taste of battle. Now, we briefly discussed Maggie, a Girl on the Streets, how that he had borrowed $700 and had the book published himself, and then it sat in his room. Well, after Red Badge of Courage, Maggie, a Girl on the Streets, was reissued and found a new readership after the great success of the Red Badge of Courage. So that became more popular as well. His fame was brought about journalistically. Because of his journalistic assignments as a correspondent, it allowed Crane to travel for that one on-the-spot experience. He travels in the West and into Mexico, where he was nearly killed in Mexico. He furnished material for later stories, several of his stories later on, from his journeys and his travels. Having joined an ill-advised expedition to supply arms to Cuban revolutionaries, he was shipwrecked off the coast of Florida and spent a day and a night at sea in a tiny dinghy, a tiny little boat, which became the basis of his story for The Open Boat, which we are going to read. After this, he settled in England for a time where he wrote some of his best stories despite his financial pressures. It was his best story time. Too much war and exposure to different elements and everything else is what had taken their toll on his body. And he became very gravely ill with tuberculosis. And that's when he did pass away at a very young age. And I just lost my spot. How's that sound? But anyway, Crane's fiction doesn't show the development of the character. The character, as we read in novels, they develop very fully. But in Crane's writing, we don't see a lot of development of character. And a lot of that could be, one, he was a young writer. And so he uses his strength as reporting honest emotions, and he aroused through stress and all kinds of emotions. Some of the characters in his books don't even have names. They're just images. The events of The Open Boat illustrate vividly Crane's perception of nature as oblivious to the welfare of man. A world that is without a higher purpose, a neutral universe in which human life is meaningful only to each individual. So he didn't really see much with purpose, a life as having purpose. But we know with God we do have purpose. And we don't have to live in this world where there's no emotion and there's all this, even though there's upheaval all around us, we still have a purpose for our lives. And I just want to close there, and we're going to start reading a little bit more background, but we're going to start reading the open book, and I'll give you some things with that. Remember to please take notes on the literature and on the videos, and stay well, stay healthy, and we'll talk to you soon.